What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by a photographer and a motion graphics artist, Andy Boyle. Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. Lovely Dramana. It's nice. I haven't been down here in a hot minute, mate.
It's a beautiful part of the world, man. Thanks for making the trek down here. Now, we're going to talk a lot about your story. I think the photography is going to play a part, but the motion graphic stuff's awesome as well. So some interesting shit to talk about. But let's start at the beginning, man. How you got involved in this sort of creative field?
I mean, it goes quite... if you want to go back the start, draw the straight line, you know, from there to there. When I was growing up, about 8 years old, I think maybe 9, I was working down at my granddad's. He had a record store down at South Melbourne Market where he sold jazz records. And
I was very familiar with that market.
Yeah. Back when it was like a real old school working class market. Yep. But he had a record store, and Granddad was a jazz musician and a painter.
Yep.
He used to paint marquees for movie theatres in the city.
Yep.
Posters and things like that. A lot of that one-off panels and things like that. So, I went down. It was an odd job on weekends. Got exposed to a lot of, 8, 9 years old, getting exposed to a lot of jazz, a lot of blues, things like that. And a lot of that music is quite visual, if you let it. So that led to, because he exposed me to like a lot of old movies, black and white, and the sound of jazz and all that kind of intertwined. And a lot of those old movies shot in New York City, around New York. So started to ping off a lot of visual.
I could already see that in your work,
Right, yeah. And aside from that is just as important. So I got my granddad tweaking the neurons about music and visuals, because he did introduce me a lot to movies, but his talent as a painter, I can't speak highly enough of how good he was.
Yep.
Caricatures and rendering and things like that. There was a bookstore across the way that sold...
This was in the middle sort of bit.
Yeah, it was around in the market, around the middle-ish
where that
section.
old rickety elevator used to be.
Yeah, so around there, right? Yeah. So around that middle section, there's a bookstore that's still there, and it is the OG, I think it is the absolute last OG store that's there. It's called the Merchant of Fairness. It's a bookstore. Now, this guy had every week a new slab of American Mad magazines from the 60s and the 70s, right? So, long story short, get paid by my granddad. I go across there and I'm hoovering up all these Mads, right? Now, that's setting off the creative juices with how they used to draw. Like, I'm talking like artists from back in the day, like Jack Davis, Mort Drucker, all these iconic American cartoonists, right? So that's pinging off. Their splash pages and their covers are really intricate, extremely detailed, right? Yep. So it's just triggering all this, I don't know, like...
A lot of colour halftone sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, colour halftone. They used to print on newsprint. And so I was amassing this collection of Mads and comics and things, which I've kept, right? And that, as I moved, I wanted to be a cartoonist and all that sort of thing, and assimilating all those seeds of illustration, that when I got into music, it's like when I was 12, I was into like bands like the KLF, like electronic groups, and even like the first tape that I ever bought was... I remember buying Public Enemy's Yo Bum Rush the Show, thinking it's kind of, it's dangerous kind of music because they swear, and you're listening to it in your bedroom going, hope mum and dad don't hear all the cursing. Anyway, it was from a record store down in Elsternwick, and like picking up the NWA EP, was it 1,000 Miles and Running, I think, right? So sort of like being open to music, and then always finding there was like a visual component to music. And then when I got to about year 10, I started picking up some photo books by Anton Corbijn. And I promise this is all going to come back. I got a real problem with segueing, about as much as I have a problem with memory and names. But yeah, so year 10 pops around and photography is offered as something you can take on in year 11. So all this cartoon stuff, I'm thinking, well, it takes a long time to draw. but here's an instant way to make pictures. And I was really inspired by music photographer, Anton Corbin, who's done a lot of amazing work last 30, 40 years, 50 years. And then photographers like Irving Penn and like really classic American portrait photographers, and then like the really outlandish stuff by David LaChapelle, and it all clicks. Oh, you can kind of do that instantaneously. So that's where the photography kind of kicked in.
And what are you shooting on then?
It was the old Pentax K1000, which is still, to me, the best camera.
Film camera.
Ever. It's a film camera. It's fully manual, needs, I think, like an old watch battery in the bottom to make the light meter work. But, that's what I started shooting on.
Yeah. And then are you thinking of a collage type stuff? Or are you just thinking about photography? Just photography, but references from books and stuff are still floating around in your head?
Yeah, a lot of it's predominantly music related. I'm thinking about, it's basically like thinking like how I want to shoot my friends and make them look cool. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I eventually wanted to move into music photography, like editorial portrait, things like that, live photography. I don't know how I was going to do it, but that was what was pinging around my head, you know. And I'm doing that in year 11 and 12, and I'm going to show my age here, but Photoshop I think it was about Photoshop 2 or 3, was in the computer lab. So I started to work with collaging, and in year 12, like that Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet movie had come out, and the soundtrack was all like collaged. The inlay card, and so I dragged all my mates into the studio, shot them in Hawaiian shirts, and collaged the movie.
So you're scanning the images
at
this stage?
Scanning and, like cutting stuff up. And, so all these little seeds that got kind of planted as a kid are finding a way to eventuate through my early work.
And so I guess you're then going... You don't need to go to the library and stuff because you've got the bookstore there. You've got enough reference material there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it's at your disposal.
Yeah. So, I mean, that gets me through to year 12, and then trying to, I guess, like, make the next step. RMIT was kind of what was the... Was
it received well at year 12? Did your teachers like it? Did
they
understand
like, this is interesting. Like, how, you taught yourself all this stuff, Photoshop and things like that. But I wanted to go off to RMIT because that's where all the photographers went, apparently. And wasn't good enough to get accepted.
It'd be very folio-based, wouldn't it?
Very folio-based, very technical, but found a fantastic photo school out in Hawthorne at the time, which was, I think, next to, it's that high school's John Gardner or something.
Oh, yep.
In Hawthorne. It's called Photographic Imaging College. And
it's like a private school sort of thing?
It was more like just a private little photo school, 2-year course, and very, very, they give you a lot of freedom to explore, what you want to do, and had a great mentor there, a guy called Mick Siriani, fantastic teacher, and he guided me towards... not just photography, but like people like David Carson, graphic designer who did Ray Gun magazine in the 90s, and he was just turning me on to all this stuff,
So he saw the vision.
It was amazing just to be like, someone to go, that's all it takes with a teacher, a good teacher. I see what you're doing, man. Let me just, try this, and it wasn't something completely related to photography.
So you found that you had a good mentor there where at school they kind of liked it, but they didn't know which direction to push you in. Now he sort of saw it a bit more.
Yeah. So like high school was great. They were encouraging, but it's like, you kind of, all right, kids, go apply for some, go apply for uni or something. But this my teachers at Photographic Imaging College, like especially that mentor Mick, he saw a direction, and then ended up taking that follow, RMIT, got in, able to do the 3-year course. They're extremely technical.
So that was a bit of a folio building exercise and skill building, so you could get to where you needed to go.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you add that up, and that's 5 years of extra, tertiary education.
Tertiary, like 5 years, Maybe it was, I probably stayed in the education system a bit longer, instead of going out and trying it.
But tell us, when you got into RMIT, was it everything you thought it would be?
Oh man, I'm not, dude. You think you're pretty good, and like, and
when's this, about the year 2000
this is
now?
99. I think I went like 99, 2000, probably 99. And
the internet's kicking off.
Internet's just kicking off, and just to like link this to something else, I get my first editorial gig in about 98, my first like magazine cover, just by chance from sending in these rave photos, right? Because it was me and our friend Jonas. We all used to go out to these parties. Anyway, I was taking my camera out, taking pictures, and the old school way, printed them up, sent them into a magazine, thinking, can you just put this in the monthly wrap up? And they're like, get a call, like, hey man, it's a great picture. Could we put it on the cover? I'm like, okay, all right.
Was it like Beat Magazine or something like that?
It was this magazine called, now this is me testing the memory, but it was a Techno Renegade magazine, which became TRM, which got bought by Impress down the track. But TRM focused on Melbourne's electronic musicians,
underground
DJs.
Scene.
Underground to almost be like going into the more, as it was commercialising.
Yep.
Yeah, so they offered editorial portraits and stuff like, I'm like, how this, yes, like that gave me such a stepping stone into that world of shooting portraits professionally.
In that scene at that time, was it having a camera where a lot of people like, I don't want you to take my photo here?
No, it was more, I was shooting like rave parties, just as they were getting really big, and shooting, big, like people like LTJ Bookham and DJ SS, CJ Bolland and all that when they came to town, just up on stage, with an old film camera, and no one had cameras there at parties.
So it was a novelty.
It was a novelty, people would be, but just documenting all that.
Would you develop the stuff yourself?
Yeah, or developed by hand and printed by hand.
So run us through that process then in like the 99, 2000.
Processing film back in the day, you'd be black and white, and people, it's still taught now, and it's important, that analog background, but that's like getting the tank, loading the film in there in the dark, in a dark bag. Oh God, it's really testing. But, you get, the film goes in a tank, you pour in all the chemicals by hand, and it's probably doing untold crap to your hands, Yep. And then, you're putting the chemicals in, you're agitating it, and and then you wash it out, putting other chemicals in there to fix it so it's permanent. Hang them up, dry them, print your contact sheet, look at that through the little eyepiece.
I'll see which ones you want to...
Yeah, print them up. Colour's a different story. You feed that in through a machine yourself. But, you could send them down to a lab. And but I was printing up a lot of stuff by hand. It was, a very long way to do it.
Yeah, but it's a rewarding process.
Yeah.
I imagine when you get that and you've done it all 100% from scratch how you can.
Yeah, and it's something that's still thankfully taught, and a lot of young photographers saved that because Kodak nearly went bankrupt and swore they weren't going to do film anymore. And like young photographers, kids are like, nah, man, I want to shoot film. Now they're raking profits back in now. So a lot of stuff I was doing by hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you would digitize those images for your artwork or to send them to people?
Well, stuff like that was, that's around, so, that crusty old rave mag, as that got snapped up by the guys who did Impress magazine.
And they're just buying out the competition sort of thing, or are they just trying to acquire?
Impress, I think, just saw potential in that mag, that there was a bit of a hole to fill for like a really good cohesive magazine that documented
And Melbourne. It was a free press thing?
That was a free press, and they... I don't know, they were writing and reviewing. It wasn't just techno, it was like electronic, and it was as that breakbeat scene was coming, which was leading into the Melbourne's hip hop like scene was starting to really grow from Obese just being a shop to being a label.
Yep.
And that is all how I kind of came into starting to shoot with the Obese crew, and like Muffin Platonic, what's that album? Hunger Pains, and but back then, like there was some Bianca. was Bianca's last name? Yeah, but she worked down at Obese at the label, and she come across my work through when I was documenting the DMC championships back when Dexter was still competing, and she's like, oh, got Obese block parties coming up. Photos are all right, can you come down and document that? Just shoot the shows, and then the photos must have been all right, because then a lot of those artists started to really commit to making records, and like Muffin Pluto and Pegs was shooting his stuff, and Bias B did that, Been There, Done That. We shot that out the back of the Astor Theatre.
I was wondering where that was when I was looking at the
artwork. Yeah. So Bias, like getting a call from him, I was just like, yeah, all right, awesome, man. Guy's a legend, absolute legend in Australian hip hop.
Was that rubbish just sitting at the bottom of the stairwell?
No, he brought boxes of flyers and stuff, and just sort of conceived this cover of him.
I was looking at that's a funny. I was just looking at that the other day. I didn't know you shot it.
Yeah, that was I can't remember. What the real story that he wanted. I think it was just like he was portraying like moving into maybe the next step of his career, and then but yeah, like doing covers for, and then Art of War as well. I mean, I loved that cover I did. It was Chapter 2, I think, was the album, and we just went to the roof of a warehouse in South Melbourne and shot pictures, and
do the artists often have a direction, or are they generally happy for you to kind of
right. So often it's a lot of those guys probably like, look, this is sort of the idea of the album, and what's your visual interpretation of that? And I mean, I probably was talking out my ass, going, we'll do this, we'll do that, but it worked, like we got pictures that worked, and and then like working with one of my oldest mates, Donnie Elacour, and taking pictures for him early on, and just going all the way through, seeing what he's doing with the new album, and what a journey, you know what I mean? But
sure.
But yeah, but all of that was like, that was the road to me wanting to shoot like large scale artists and shows and portraits and things like that. Well, I
guess it's good timing. You come out of RMIT, you want to get into music photography. You've got this scene that's kind of really coming into its own. So you were kind of there at the right place at the right time.
I really was, and like really fortunate. I was always sort of adjacent to that kind of hip hop and electronic music. So I couldn't make the music, and I wouldn't be able to rap to save myself. But like those opportunities were there for like, hey, look, this is the music we're putting out. Can you do a visual interpretation of it? And Jace Beatheads like trusting me with his first album, the Jace Connection album, and that was around about the time as as all those albums were coming out. That was about the time I started to think about like New York City, and feeling like could either stay, reach a plateau, and happily continue, and I probably would have had to go into advertising, photography, and things like that. But was go to New York and give that a shot, which had always been the dream to do that.
So how does that come about?
So I'd had a really good run with the guys at Impress, which I think that became the music magazine and website. And Lee, who has gone on to do Handshake Management, doing like Vacations, and Alex Lahi, and artists like really, really pushing Australian music. He's an amazing guy. And like Andrew Mast, who was my editor there, and they were just handing me incredible musicians and artists to work with, and DJs to shoot for the dance supplement, And I just was like...
Was that a paying gig then, though?
That was a paying gig,
Because a lot of people are contributing content, I remember, that were probably doing it just to get some runs on the board.
Originally, I was trying to get runs on the board, and then just was lucky for it to be paying gigs, So the guys at Impress, they gave me so much amazing work to work on and build a folio that looked halfway decent. And then eventually, just for New York City, it was this moment of, all right, it's either got to be now or never, And
so that's like mid-2000s?
That's about 2007. So around about 2006, I'm doing all this great stuff with Obese and independent music labels and things like that. And just was a literal pack your bags, go, you'll work it out. and it was.
So what do you go for a working visa? What do you do? Because it's hard to just go to the US and try
it is,
and
and I don't know whether I'm going to be like shooting myself in the foot, you know, like
it was different. It was a bit different 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, you had to be careful taking a thing like a big printed folio through, because if they open you, what do you got? All this looks like a work folio to me. But I went on the tourist visa and just sniffed around and
3 months you can stay.
You can stay there 3 months, and I had friends to link up with and stay with, and they showed me around town and just completely fucking blew my mind.
Where'd you land? Where were you first staying when you got there?
Down like below Tribeca, sleeping on a couch.
Very arty sort of part of town?
No, this part of town was... Oh, no, it was below Tribeca. It was down to... Actually, sorry, like even further down towards the World Trade Center before they built the new one. And that was some of the new developments down there. But, my mate stayed with her husband. This is just how the kind of world it is over there. Her husband's mother discovered the Strokes. She was managing Ozzy Osbourne, Lou Reed, and all. I'm just like, you're kind of adjacent to all this, and so stay with them. And then at about 3 weeks of having a good time, I'm like, probably should actually go out and try and sniff out what's possible here, rather than just, going out to parties and getting drunk and. Yeah. Did
you have like an online presence at that stage?
No.
Everything there was stuff happening like that. Like people had websites.
Yeah, the MySpace era, I think they call it now. Like
Tumblr and stuff.
I think even Tumblr was really a thing. It was MySpace was where you were posting stuff, even if you were posting. But website, there was a little bit of a website, nothing flash. I think Jonas probably helped me build my first website, I didn't have much of a presence, but I ended up finding Milk Studios, which is based in Manhattan and Los Angeles, big facility where everyone and anyone shoots. And they were like, well, you can come in and work the equipment room and schlep equipment. Yeah. So I did that. And they offered me a job after about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And they were like, you can get a visa, right? I'm like, absolutely, no worries. I'm like, I don't know, how am I going to do this? But worked out. There was a visa.
So you didn't even have to come back?
Well, I had to go back to... there was a visa at the time called the E3, which you had to have a degree relative... I had a degree in photography. It was relative to the field you wanted to work in.
Yep.
So, they were like, literally like, you can get a visa, right? Like, oh, yeah. You're talking out my ass. Got no idea that I can get it. But somehow, I didn't have a lawyer or anything. I don't know. Printed out documents, got the visa, flew back to Australia. They said, if you can get back here by like May 1st with a visa, job's yours. Yeah, got it. Maybe. See if I can do it. But got back and then worked for them. And that was the beginning of the journey in New York. I mean, I was schlepping equipment, but it was the foot in the door.
Yep.
So...
And I'm guessing it's not a great paying job, but it's a job. And it affords you to stay there.
It paid okay. No, I mean, starting salaries there can be quite low, just in America,
And to live in New York.
Yeah, I mean, you learned how to do it. You learned, you want to drink, you went out to art gallery openings and, you wanted to... I mean, you're cooking pasta every night and eating a lot of oatmeal in the morning.
But what's rent? Like, you can't stay on your friend's couch forever. So you got to go get rent, and that's going to be, I'm guessing, 25, 30, 40% of what you're earning.
Well, I mean, like, I was fortunate to find rent stabilization. Like, someone had a room in a rent stabilized apartment.
Right.
And, I mean, it was a steal. It was $700 US in the East Village, which is unheard of. A month. But, I mean, it's a $1,400 apartment, but you don't get that now at all. But it was rent stabilized, that helped. But it was a shoebox. It was like 2-bedroom with no living room.
Yep.
That. Yeah.
But it's the experience.
It's the experience, and the 2 years of that studio, I would work nights or days and then go out and take pictures when I could. So it was a bit of a I had to move away a bit from taking pictures for a bit. Mm-hmm. But in my spare time, just kept at it. But
you're working within the industry.
Yeah, you're meeting people, and like what a studio like that does, and it's always I recommend it to a lot of young assistants in New York, in the States, who come through, and because people sometimes contact me asking for pointers. I say studio is a good way to go. You learn the ropes, you learn the equipment, you meet people. Yeah. So you're meeting all the assistants of all these really successful
Those assistants go on to be...
Yeah. That's exactly how it's gone. A lot of guys I knew coming up are now shooting quite prolifically.
That's how it works in everything.
That's
just
how
about.
It works, mate. It's a long road. It's always stress that to anyone that listen, like wanting to leg up into any creative field. I mean, it's got to be about longevity.
Yep.
You know, especially now with social media being instantaneous. It's like, no, you've got to be in it for the long haul if you want to be serious about it.
I think, in anything you've got to earn your stripes at some stage. And if you do get that instant gratification of people just think they're going to jump steps, well, they might get a reality check eventually down the track.
Yeah, you might get kicked down those stairs, you know. But yeah, so look, that studio begat being able to work. I became a photo assistant, but still shot on the side, and was able to maintain that to the point where I was able to step out on my own, which is terrifying over there.
Yep.
You know, it's a very competitive...
So did that, after the 2 years, you decided that was time, or things just played that way?
No, it was time. I mean, I could have kept renewing that particular visa to keep working at that studio, and like Milk Studio's fantastic. Such a leg up, because the guy who ran that or runs that studio, Manhattan's not there anymore. They still operate Los Angeles, but Milk has satellite companies, you know, in the creative industry. But the guy who runs that, guy called Mazdak Rassi, is just this magnet for creatives and music and photo, and it was a culture. I mean, they'd have parties at that studio, and like the people that would turn up to perform, you know, insane. We had Wu-Tang play a party there, you know.
While you were working?
Yeah, it was insane, you know.
Just their office party?
Yeah, Travis Scott and things like that. But like, you know, like for launch parties and things like that there. But, you know, it's like, it's just Santa Gold playing, you know, does a party there. Salt and Pepper played one. I mean, that was crazy, you know. But
all that happened within your 2 years?
Oh, that happened a little after, but during some of those were in the 2 years. I mean, I wouldn't be able to even like tell you off the top of my head the amount of like people that came through there. Like they had a little club in the basement, like a club underneath.
Yeah.
You know, a jam room, they called it, you know.
Yeah.
Insane.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So then eventually after 2 years, you think, all right, well, I need to do my own thing. This has been a great experience, but it's time for me to, you know, spread my wings a little bit.
Yeah. Assisted for a bit. Got to work with some incredible photographers, really did. Like Annie Leibowitz, who's just, you know, pinnacle of a career as you could get. And even like Brian Adams, who's the musician, is a very prolific photographer in the States. So getting to work assisted him, and
I didn't know that.
I tell that to people. And say,
no idea.
Brian Adams, the guy's summer of '69. I'm like, yeah, mate, he's really successful, prolific photographer.
Wow.
You know,
in the fashion world, in the music world?
In the fashion world.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because you liken him to that, you know, that side of things, like the music, and you're like, no, he's...
Yeah. I used to think that a little bit of trivia for him was that he was Canadian. Everyone thought he was American, but no, there's a photographer.
And he runs a fashion magazine, and name escapes me at the moment. But yeah, a lot of like really incredible photographers I got to work with, and did that for a few years, and then eventually it was again like, oh, how long can I do this for? Because you work pretty long hours and hard amount of hours as an assistant.
Yeah. And you feel like you're not creatively really flexing what you want to do because your vision, it's not your vision, it's someone else's.
Yeah.
You're just helping them.
You're lighting it.
Yeah.
You're lighting it. But look, cut my teeth working for some really incredible people, and you know, some Australian photographers that lived and worked there, and but eventually it was like I have to flex the creative muscle myself.
Yep.
You know?
And so then it's obviously a bit daunting, but you go out on your own.
Yeah.
And then does the visa situation, how does that play
out?
So
that changes. I decided to go out at probably the worst possible time, which was when the financial crash happened. It was just after, and stuff was dire. Yeah, people, it's no work, not no work, but
they were tightening their belts with everything.
Budgets were cut really hard, you know, that... it was similar to after COVID, you know, budgets got cut. But, the visa changes. You go for a visa you can freelance on and work for yourself. And So
Is that because you had the runs on the board for being there for 2 years, or you think anyone could have pushed that?
Well, I was 2 years at that studio as a grunt, and then was assisting for about 4 years.
But just from the visa perspective, do you think that they were more lenient because you'd been there for a while?
I had to show them the work.
Yeah, okay.
When you get that freelance visa, the O1, you've got to have a folio, and you've got to have stuff. You've got to have notches under your belt, exhibits, like published work. So I don't amass that while I was working for other people.
Yep.
And it happened. I was fortunate to have that, and then was able to, get that visa so I can work for myself now.
And then, so you just decided, I'm going to be freelance, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get your own studio, or you're going to do it for,
Yeah, so look, I started shooting for myself, and a lot of great opportunities came up, and was doing, particularly around like music festivals and music-related editorial, advertising, also a lot of like fashion stuff, but the music stuff's what grabbed me.
So you're writing as well?
Oh,
just photography?
No, just photography.
So when you say the editorial...
editorial is like you're shooting stuff for editorial magazines, online, print, things like that. No, I couldn't write to... So... but then that just... Just for someone from Melbourne, like, and it still blows my mind. You get exposed to work. You're exposed to all these people.
Many other Aussies over there?
Yeah, a lot, man.
Yeah. So it wasn't a novelty that you were from Australia? People didn't care that much? It was?
It was a little bit of a start. I like your accent, dude. It's hilarious, And a lot, bless them, man, a lot of Americans, they really, like, they try to, say our, like, funny little lingo. Yeah. So hearing an American say, "Hey, mate," is always quite sweet. Quite.
You have to explain to them we don't have shrimp on the bar.
No, yeah. If I get asked that again, I'll. Yeah.
Do you guys like Foster's?
Do you have Foster's? I'm like, I think it's bought by an American company or something. But yeah. Look, I got to work with. I mean, some of the people I got to work with, it's still a bit of a pinch yourself moment. And
drop some names for us, man. Come on.
Oh, here we go. Okay. But there was people like, there was a festival. One of the people, the crews I work with is the people that do Coachella.
Yep.
And so I get to go out into the desert and shoot that,
which is a long way from New York.
It's a long way from New York. It's it's out in the quite out west. But that crew that do that Golden Voice, they started out with a very punk background, so they've done the years on touring and festivals. So they do a lot more besides Coachella. They do a lot of smaller shows. They do a lot of other festivals, like specific, like genre specific.
Yep.
So I got to shoot a lot of, be it like their punk festivals. They did a metal festival. They're doing like new age synthwave and things like that. But
it's interesting to know that, because they do a really good way of they do a good job of with their Coachella lineup, keeping it very mixed in the genre stakes. So that makes sense. They've got a finger in a few different pies.
Yeah, I think like Coachella's their big one, but they really branch into other genres and
in a healthy way,
very healthy way. So they're with AEG that tour a lot of major tours and things like that. So I was able to work with them and like Spotify and things like that. But like in the editorial sense, getting to work with people like shoot portraits of like Virgil Abloh, which was This is like drawing the line back to like doing the obese stuff. Like I used to have like anxiety attacks like before those shoots. Like, we need you to go shoot, like doing like, so like Bias's album. I'm like, oh, fuck, what have I got to add to Bias is a legend, and what do I know about that career and genre and even like bands when I was doing Impress, like would have just sweats, like, oh, I'm going to fuck this up.
But inevitably you were fine.
Apparently, yeah. But then like doing like someone like Virgil, oh man.
But he's a creative.
How am I going to talk to this guy? Every time I do those shoots, and, you could look at my folio and, but, well, that's all right, but every one of those shoots, I'm like, fuck, am I going to talk about with this person? How am I going to relate to these people? And
was he fine?
Oh, he's so cool. So cool. Dude just comes in and was a magazine cover, and he just like, I mean, it's just so sad after he passed, you know, just remembering how he's just like so chill. Comes in, he just starts doodling on one of his sneakers, you know, with a marker, you know, just pulls it off and starts drawing on it, you know. And then like Jay Balvan, that was pretty incredible. Working with him, and that was like just around the time he was like blowing up, like
he's
big
huge,
time.
man.
He was already big. I'm not saying like, oh, I got onto him before, you know, but
he was big in South America.
He was huge, and
people don't know in the Western world how big he is there. Like he's
massive. Like when there was, you know, when I was assigned, so this guy's like streaming in the billions down there, and he was just about to blow up massively in the States. So just like getting to hang out with him for a day.
And he's a good dude?
He's a good dude, you know, really cool, really chill, very, very, you know, would you mind, can I shoot you like, oh yeah, man.
You don't get signature Nike shoes unless you're a big deal.
No, exactly.
And he's had about 4 of them, I think.
Yeah. And then there's like other... A lot of the indie artists over there are really fun to work with, and just like particularly when they're on the cusp of blowing up. There's a singer over there, Ethel Kane. I think she's got some traction over here, but just an amazing, like she's from Alabama or something, just very haunting. And yeah, I loved working with her because like she has such a vision with her music, and very dark, almost like David Lynch-esque kind of music. So you can go from shooting these big artists and, you know, down to like some of the more indie, and, you know, still just take away as much excitement from that. But I keep coming back, mate. I just keep coming back to like, I'm just, you know, from Melbourne, you know, like I still, yeah, mate. I think that's one of like our Aussie traits, you know, like really, I get that. I have that imposter syndrome every time I work on set. What am I doing here, you know?
Yeah. You just got to. He's got to do it. They're not there for. Yeah. Look, I'd imagine shooting someone like Virgil would be daunting.
Yes.
Do you show him the shots, or he just trusts that?
I'll have it on the. You know, you have the big like setup with the monitors and all that, and you just like you bang through it and you pull up all your references and we'll give this a try. You throw some lights around, make a ton of mistakes, but usually I've got it set up before they walk in.
So you know how it's going.
Oh yeah, they don't want them. You don't want them sitting there going, "I thought you were a professional, mate." You know?
But it must be daunting to shoot other creatives because you feel that they've got a vision themselves, or they, you know what I mean? That's a whole different sort of thing.
Yeah, and like a lot of, particularly the music world. Quite often they'll plunk themselves down in front of your camera and they're not like, I don't know, they run through a few poses and then that's kind of it. And you got to like really pull that out of them. But it's, I don't know. Sometimes they're really like, some artists are really into it and really giving, and then you've got to like you got to pull that out, you know, for a picture. You know, it's like, trust me, I'll make it look cool. It's fine, you know. So.
And so those freelance jobs just continue and continue.
Yeah,
you're never really stressed and chasing things.
Always stressed, mate. Always stressed.
Oh, that's all part of it.
That's part of the freelance world, and it's a really look, mate. Honestly, it's an interesting time for creatives right now. Like I know it's like everyone loves talking about it, but like with AI, it's a very interesting time. It's going to be a challenging period for creatives, I think, but. That's worrying a lot of people in the States, in film and photo and
people
everything.
Are making films that don't even have any actors, which that's kind of weird.
Yeah, look. At the same time, it's like, you know, you get people posting. I'm not gonna rubbish people doing AI. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh yeah, fuck AI, it's bullshit. Yeah, but. You know, it's sort of like you're cutting like an AI video of like, oh, look, I made a car chase. And you're like, oh, cool. But, you know,
what's
okay.
the application for it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you could go, big deal. What are you pushing? What's that really accelerating? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's an interesting tool. There are interesting tools there. And I really like I love the AI that looks like a waking nightmare. You know, you kind of like, oh, God, you know, what the, you know.
It is. It's funny though, because you came up in a time where Photoshop was new.
Yeah.
Now you got to think the generation of photographers and stuff before that thought that was cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and AI is kind of like that now. Like,
yeah.
Where I grew up, there was a lot of advertisers around sort of South Melbourne, Port Melbourne.
Yeah.
A lot of advertising, a lot of creative people around there. And a lot of those guys, my friends' dads and stuff, they didn't embrace that computer age.
No.
And that's the thing. So now it's kind of like maybe this is the next computer age, the AI thing. Do you embrace it? Do you not? Is there going to be a pushback, you know?
I mean, there is a pushback. There is a pushback going on, whether it's the quality of it or the ethics of it. You almost can't argue the ethics of it in a way in the professional world, because a client is going to want to save money no matter what.
Yep.
Maybe to the detriment of, it'll be to the detriment of the product. Like Toys R Us cut an AI ad for Christmas or something, or like around the Thanksgiving holidays in the States, and it looked awful. And then Coca-Cola did their annual Christmas ad in the States, and it looked terrible. But in saying that, I think maybe AI, the embrace of it, is also going to push creatives to embrace their craft. And look, for me personally, and particularly with the motion graphics work, the joy for me is in the making of it, is in learning. It's like when you watch CGI special effects artists talking about CGI visual effects versus practical, and a lot of them will talk about the joy of in practical, like the problem solving.
Yep.
And I think that is for us, like as creatives, for all of us.
Yeah.
There is that joy of like getting in there, getting underneath the, like maybe even the music, like twiddling knobs and things like that. That's a coincidence. Like I wouldn't have got that if I hadn't, rather than punching in a prompt.
Yeah.
And be like, make it, because that's what AI is. It's approximation of everything it can yank off the internet.
Yeah.
But I feel like that photographers, filmmakers, musicians, rappers, writers, there may be an embrace of the craft more so.
Well, I think now in this AI infancy, if we can say that, the people that people are using it, but there's not many people using it well.
Yeah.
So I think there almost will be a whole market for people that just know how to prompt things properly. Or how to fucking pull apart these things to get your results out of it.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I mean, look, for me personally, with the work I've been doing, I can't speak to every creative, but I do feel like using your hands and like solving the problems is exciting.
Yep.
In a way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where that goes in general. Because like when you look at, you said that you started using Photoshop too.
Yeah.
Now Photoshop, and I haven't done this myself. Yeah. But I've seen that you can just circle a background and go, make it a castle, make it a beach.
Yeah,
And I know that people probably aren't going to use that from a professional capacity, but Joe Blow, who has his own little fucking business, is probably using that stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly. Look, I mean, that AI functionality is cutting things like very tedious tasks down, which is great. Leaves more room for creativity.
Yep.
But yeah, there is concern at the moment of where it's going to go for creative industries, and like for the industry I'm in. It's going to take a chunk of work away, like whether it's in the product photography realm or,
I guess from your personal perspective, at least you're established enough and your name's out there.
I hope so.
But it's going to be a lot harder for kids who don't embrace that to come up through the ranks now, because they're going to be not only expected to have good photo editing skills and good photography skills, but you're also going to be expected to be able to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have a lot of admiration for young photographers on the come up, because the way they, like I said earlier, like how they saved film photography, because there was this collective shift away. You can never, it's almost like you can't predict when a new tech comes in, you can't predict how people are going to react to it. So when digital photography comes in and it goes the way it goes, suddenly all the kids like in school and that are like, no man, like everyone's doing that. Can we do film?
Yep.
And then you've got like analog photography is hugely popular and it's being used in commercial work. From what I've seen in the States, and I know photographers who get paid to shoot film, which was unheard. Like going back like 15 years ago or something, when digital was the way. So people paying you to do shooting film, garbage. What? No, people don't do that anymore. But no, people are.
But it's the full circle moment because there's a search for authenticity in a digital sort of way.
Well, that's a really good. That's probably spot on. I think authenticity is what people are, after this kind of normalizes and stabilizes, there will be, you see it across everything, like music to photo to film. There's that authenticity, using your hands and making it,
But there's also, see now and this is not you personally, I'm just saying this as someone who's paying attention to what's going on in society, there's a push for the disposable cameras to come back. Kids are using them now there's even digital disposable cameras. Have you seen that where you can't see them until the next day?
Yep, I've seen that.
So and that's like, obviously it's not film, but it's still a cool concept that kind of gets people away from worrying about the screen and over analyzing things.
I found, saying that, I found that as an assistant and moving into shooting, that you watch the dynamic on set of your photographers sitting here clicking away and everyone's looking at the screens over there and they're about 3 shots behind. Well, maybe, I know the digital techs I work with would kill me for saying that, but because they're like, no man, it's instantaneous. But you're shooting and the creativity and the shots happening here and people are like over here going, oh, could we try that? And you're like, mate, I'm already on it, So I know some photographers like to shoot away. They don't use a screen. They like to shoot with the back of the camera and not even look at it because you're reacting like shooting film, where it's more about what's going on here.
Yep.
And creating
like
a picture.
Me talking to you there.
Yeah, going.
Yeah.
Oh no. And look, I'm guilty of that. I shoot going. No. So sometimes that digital, that you lose that one-on-one connection to your subject.
Yep.
But I brought a disposable camera over and I just shot the last 6 weeks here in Melbourne with 36 frames. I'm like, just take that out and that'll do.
If you developed it here? Or
not yet. I don't know where you develop film in Melbourne. That's what's crazy. But
it's in New York, you know where to get it done.
Oh, yeah. It's all like, well, that's another thing. Like film development, like labs shot up in the last few years. So, you can make,
So the analog resurgence is sort of coming back.
Well, it's come back over there. Yeah. It in the last 10 years or so. Yeah. A lot of people shooting film again.
But that might be that's because New York's kind of forward thinking. I'm
it's
guessing
a bigger market. It's definitely a bigger.
Yeah, and a lot more creatives than probably other parts of the US potentially.
Oh, definitely. Like between like New York and LA, there's but you find like creatives are kind of everywhere. There's different cities. A lot of creatives spring up in different places. You don't necessarily have to be in New York anymore.
Yep.
I think that was like Patti Smith said that famously recently. She's like, young creatives, you don't have to come to New York anymore. It's like, okay.
Well, every city has its own creative hub of some sort. And the internet, it is what it is.
Yeah. But I mean, between New York and LA, LA, bless them, they're going through some stuff at the moment.
Fucked, isn't it? Yeah.
Hardcore, they have such an incredible creative scene over there, which, LA wasn't always known in that sense. Was known for film, for movies, and then there's a lot of photographers like moving there and making a go there. But all being well, I mean, it's pretty dire there at the moment.
Very much so, man. And I don't even know, do they have those fires under control now?
No.
Really? They still don't? And it's been like a week.
Well, I mean, like the containment's the problem, and like, I can't. I'm not obviously someone that knows how war works, but I believe from what they've said that because of the hurricane, the winds were like hurricane force in the first 2 days when they were starting to pop off. You couldn't do the aerial bombardment of like fire retardant and water, because usually you wildfires you send the choppers in and they dump the water, and then you guys on the ground.
Apparently there's a water shortage as well. There's a lot of
I mean, like, again, there's going to be probably a very big review of what's going on, but like I said, they couldn't fly the choppers in, like they pick the water up out of the ocean, or they get the fire retardant, they drop it, and the guys on the ground kind of like back it up. But with the hurricane force winds for 2 days, the guys on the ground were it. And you've got you got fires that are the size of Manhattan, like together, in like 5 different areas. It couldn't keep up. And so you tap out, you know what I mean? So it's pretty, it's going to take a while. There'll be, like you look at our bushfires here, they go for a while.
Scary, man.
Yeah, but I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah. So while you're doing your freelance thing, Instagram pops up.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm guessing, from a creative perspective, that's a bit of a game changer as well.
Yeah, I think it's a game changer for anyone that's doing
But very much so for the artistic, creative community, I think, more than just,
Yeah, Instagram's it's funny, like social media in our industries, I'll speak just for photo, I can't speak for everyone else, but Instagram, was great, when it was very still-based. Mm-hmm. Photography based, and then they flip their algorithm and they're going, we're going to favour motion now. And it is interesting how much that conversation changed for still photographers. Like maybe still photographers with their agents or producers said, you need to commit more to motion. Motion is what gets the views. Motion is what gets the engagement. And I'd be telling a lie if I didn't pivot a little bit because of what I was being told of where the algorithms are going. You need to do more motion. And it is true. Every time I drop something that moves, it gets a lot of traction. And every time I drop something that's still, engagement plummets.
For sure. And I think that, but even with the photography stuff, you can kind of cheat a little bit, where you can show setting up for it and then the photo.
You can, yeah. And look, I mean, a lot of people tell me, dude, you got to show you behind the scenes, and I'm like, man, I haven't got the time to, that's a whole other thing. But yes, and that's another great thing is that's the social media aspect of photo and film, but photo in particular is you can show you don't. A lot of people are not gatekeeping anymore. Showing their process and the setup. I mean, some of my favourite photographers over there show their process like their behind the scenes stuff. And I'm like, the lighting's interesting. Oh, that's how he does it. So simple.
Yeah.
So it helps you improve your technique. But I would love to throw down some behind the scenes of what I do. I'm like,
yeah, it was a real interesting pivot in what probably maybe 7-8 years ago where video came in, and I know people that had a lot of followers that got a lot of engagement, and then their video is where it's at, and then they just get sort of thrown off guard, and they're like, hang on, I get no fucking engagement.
That's true. Yeah, engagement for still photography plummeted. And
that's just a byproduct of the way that Instagram was pushing it. It wouldn't have been an intention.
No, I mean, it's very hard to game their algorithm, but it is funny how much of our industry, with photo, is responding to that platform.
But because it's still the one at this point in time. But it's like with Instagram, you open it up and say you go to post something, it automatically pushes you to be in the real setting. It won't let you, you have to select, I want to be in the still section, which shows you how much they're pushing that side.
Yeah, there's been, like I said, watching, measuring engagement. Yeah. It's so different for still, which is a shame because I love, that's what I am initially was a photographer, and this, the motion stuff is what gets the traction, since pivoting to that.
That's also with the internet, with smartphones, people don't have the fucking mental capability to sit there and not be engaged.
No,
so that's a factor too.
Oh, mate, it's funny when you look at your
grid
where it drops off. You can look at your stats, and you can see the average watch is 3 seconds.
Yeah,
you're like, shit.
But that's why I think with a lot of these, when you look at making content, they said you have to change a shot every 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Because that's what people are used to now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I see that people do that with reels. They'll focus, they'll zoom out. And I'm like, no, that's just too cheesy.
Yeah, true.
It takes away from what the person's actually saying. I'm just talking about from this sort of podcast level, but yeah.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, when I'm doing, I was pivoted recently to doing motion graphics stuff.
But it still has a real feel, your stuff. Because
I try, mate. Just to swing back to what I was saying at the beginning, the stuff that inspired me early on, how that has informed what I've been doing over the last year. And I was reading a book by Rick Rubin, who did that one, The Creative Act, I think it's called, which I always recommend to any creative to read it, because he talks about when people want to do a pivot, you might be not feeling what you're doing anymore, and he says to just what did you like doing as a kid? What made this excite? What made you excited? And think about that feeling. And usually something will resonate and you go with that. And when I had a good, long, hard think about, I wasn't on some kind of shit or get off the pot moment where, oh God, I've got to pivot. I don't know what I'm going to be doing.
But it was a natural.
It was a progression, but I was really thinking about maybe some of the photo stuff is not really exciting me much anymore. I don't want to become just going through the motions of I better I'm going to get some ad jobs, I've got to pay bills, which you've got to sometimes do, one for you, one for them with your work, one that works for you personally, and then something that's all right, got to shoot this.
But that also helps with your folio and getting more jobs,
No,
when you
exactly,
do the commercialist stuff.
Yeah. But when thinking about the pivot that I wanted to do, I started going back to, and I really thought hard about the stuff that really excited me as a kid, and they were pretty I was even stuff books that Graham Bass used to do, remember Animalia, those books, kids books.
Yep.
I remember just sitting there looking at those books for hours, and realizing that those seeds got planted early on, what for, and the Mad magazines, the comic books, and the process of how they make those comic books, you were talking about the two-tone
color half-tone stuff,
right? Which is people are that's so popular now, going back to analog ways of doing stuff that looks analog. So I was mining my archives of Raygun Mag and magazine and all that stuff that I was looking at in school, college, and how that could inform work going forward, and learning that I could merge my photography with that, shooting stop motion stuff, stop motion portraits, and then cutting them up and then laying them on backgrounds and sketching over them, painting them, and cutting that to music. And the sky's the limit with that. That's what's been the most positive thing for me with the pivot recently, is how I can embrace all those avenues, those mediums, in a way, just put it together.
But you haven't removed yourself from photography, but that's just something that is speaking to you more creatively.
Yeah, no, it totally is. Yeah, it speaks to me more because it just harks back to what excited me as a kid,
And it has a commercial application too.
Apparently, it seems to. It works very well in the music world. A lot of that motion work I've been doing recently are trailers for music festivals or tours, cross promotions for there was a car commercial I had to do that had to cross promote to Coachella, and just finding there's a way to do that.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was okay, you can do all this with expensive car commercials, But
is it and it is that stuff? There's obviously a digital aspect, but a lot of it is it cut and paste and stop motion.
It's some of it is physically printed out and cut. The thing with doing that commercial, the more personal stuff is stuff I'm doing for me is done completely analog with digital elements. The commercial stuff needs to a certain extent be done digitally because it has to be. You have to go back and edit it You know, the client might be...
That needs to be longer. We need
longer,
to cut,
this, that. It needs to be coloured differently. The motion needs to be different. So I need to kind of be able to go back and...
Yeah, you can't uncut the paper.
You can't. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of times when I'm doing that stuff, like it's easier. Like usually, I think like the cliche is it's easier to put it on than take it away, or misquoting that. But anyway, but like for me, it's easier to take it away before throwing everything in there. Yeah, I might have just botched that whole thing up, but
as long as it makes sense to you,
it makes sense to me. But a lot of the commercial stuff, the rule of thumb for me is it must look analog. It needs to look like. I mean, you know, we're all kids and used to like making dioramas. You know, play with action figures and little dioramas and scenes. That's how I like making. I made a trailer for the Drop Dead Detroit Festival and thought, hey, you know, the client's like, how can you represent this? Like festival Diplo was headlining, and you know, it's got to be like a Halloween haunted house kind of thing, and Diplo's got to have his likeness in there, and the other DJs. I'm like, oh, can I build like a 3D haunted house, like a diorama, like you would have cut up as cardboard as a kid, and we can put all the bio shots of the DJs in there, and like, yeah, go nuts, man. Yes. And then so again, that's stuff when you're a kid. You yank that out and you put that in your work, you know.
But it's got to be a balancing act to think how time-consuming this is going to be and how much you're making out of it. You know what I mean? So to make sure the dollars make sense.
Mate, and I've put my foot in that so many times.
I could imagine.
Like, what do you quote for this? Yeah, we'll quote this, you know, and then you get like 10 days deep and you're just like, oh, shit, you know. All right, it was a decent quote, but man, I'm like, it's a lot of hours. You know, and you're learning as you're going. A lot of that stuff, like sometimes I don't even know I don't know how I'm going to do it until I have to come to that portion of the work, and it's.
Do you storyboard at all?
Usually it's storyboarded, but a lot of it does come very like spontaneously.
Okay.
Like I'll start in one direction, and then there's a problem to be solved, and then it might change the direction a little bit. Client's got to clear it, but
so say I come to you with fucking Maloney Fest, and I've got a big music festival and put it on, and I've got this budget, and I'm like, this is what I want to do. Yeah. So do you then storyboard something and give it to them like a basic sort of thumbnail thing?
Yeah, you get like you might come to me and say, we're going to do a music festival, Maloney Music Festival, and all these guys that are on your wall are going to play, and we need some promo shots, we need the pictures of the artists and the DJs and da-da-da, but I wouldn't mind factoring in some of this this aesthetic. So I'd sort of if it was a 3D piece or a motion collage, you extract it all and work out a visual journey for it, and this is where I think it should start, and this is what some of the techniques I think we could use, and we'll hit these beats, and it's like storyboarding a film, it's just a guide.
Yeah. And you put that into like a little presentation sort of thing?
Like slideshow. And but I've been really lucky that a lot of the clients that I've worked with have trusted me to be like...
And that's because you've built yourself a name.
Have worked... worked enough with them to be like, look, these are the beats we need to hit. This is what we need to include. What do you got?
Yeah. And then, do they, with the deliverables, are they like, okay, so we also need this to work in a 1 minute fashion and a this and a that, and it's also got to translate,
Mate, you hit a really good nail on the head going back to what you're saying about social media. You will get, all right, it's got to be X amount of time long, usually about 30 seconds, but it needs to be this and this and this, and like about 4 different ratios.
And go on a bus stop and fucking everything.
Particularly just dealing with social media where it needs to work 4x5, 9x6, the 9x16 tall Reels format. But then also when you watch Reels on Instagram, if you tap it, it slightly zooms in. So it goes, you see the reel on the feed and then you tap the actual post and it zooms in slightly. So you got to bring everything in towards the middle, and then it's got to work 4x5. So everything's got to come in again. And you start to, man, I go nuts building all these, and I'm like, no one's going to see that, because then it's sitting under icons and type, and comments.
But it's there. It's easy to take it away.
Yeah, exactly. But man, like you cut it and you're like, yeah, man. Oh, it looks good. Oh, wait a minute. That 9:16 tall format's got to go 4:5. You know.
But do you take that into consideration with the quotes, different reviews, and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean,
do you take that into, do you, because I'm just trying to get my head around this stuff. Do you be like, okay, I'm going to deliver you this and you're going to be happy with it? Or do you say, this is what it takes to make it? And then, if there's to and from and you want to alter it?
Yeah, you usually like, and this is the great thing with like people like Golden Voice who do those festivals, they've got they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Actually, look, sorry, let me backtrack. Like everyone I've been quite lucky. Everyone I've worked with so far has been quite on it. Like they understand the process, but it's usually hit 3 drafts of, specifically with the motion work I've been doing.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll hit about 3 drafts, and first one's the skeleton of it, the guts of it. It's about 50% done. You know, you can't go too far on it, or you'd be like schlepping away at that for days and days.
And then they're not happy at all with
and
the
then they're
direction.
not happy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you don't want to be cutting layers and textures and things like that, and you get your whole flow and the way it moves, and just be like, nah, it's not quite. Like, oh, damn, I've got to start again. So it's about 3 before you can it's really nailed, and then I'll finesse and hand it off, and then go back for a 4:5 edit. Just
do you enjoy the whole process? Because there's obviously tedious parts,
mate. It gets tedious sometimes because a lot of the I like to try and hand animate elements to it. I know you can buy elements on
packs and
things like that. And I do, just some textures that I need but I try to hand animate stuff, whether it's, I don't know, fill in the back, some like sketchy stuff. I got really inspired by that. This is going to sound so whack, but I got really inspired by the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant Mayhem.
I haven't seen that one, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a really unique form of animation, and I know there's going to be a few...
Is it like CGI, or is it...
I was just thinking, like, a few friends of mine, if they're going to listen to this, like, they're going to groin, going, God, he's always on about Ninja Turtles. Like, that was so formative for me, mate, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Me too, man. Yeah.
I mean, Nintendo and Ninja Turtles, it all goes back to that. But no, but... It was CGI, but they worked in a very hand-drawn, like the guy, Seth Rogen, who produced it, said, I need this to look like one... Sorry, just dropped all this stuff. But one of these books, it's a sketchbook, and it's got to look like a teenager did it. Well, I mean, this is not teenagers, but you know what I mean? It's a sketchbook.
Yeah, it's got to look rough and rugged.
Yeah, think of it like a bunch of... you're in school and you're sketching stuff out.
So the lines aren't matching up.
No, everything's off kilter. So I watched that film and I was just sitting there going, mind blown by this process where, there's CGI in it, but they just roughed everything, scribbles, and there was a whole way they did it. So as stuff descends into the background and out of focus, well, your doodle lines get thicker and more chaotic. And I was like, it's really interesting. And like, I come off the back of seeing films like that animated Spider-Man one that everyone was freaking out about, the Spider-Verse, where the animation was just so diverse in it. And watching that and being really inspired by that. But that Turtles movie, because it was very rough and jagged, I'm like, there's some interesting stuff in there. So I began to insert that kind of mentality into it. Just, how can I rough this by hand?
Right.
And they're the elements I add to the work. And, we were talking earlier, like where it feels a bit more analog and a bit tactile. Yep. And that's the rule of thumb. Like, I want it to look like it. And I'm not rubbishing people who make motion graphics where it looks like, it's quite, shiny and nice. But
again, it's that search for authenticity.
Yeah.
If it looks messy, it kind of isn't perfect.
Yeah, and that's what I like to try and commit to. It's got to have a uniqueness to it. So every job I do, like all the layers are custom. It takes forever, but you want to learn how to... I sort of say that to I've spoke to some students recently, and it's like the industry's moving. We're in a very fast-paced industry and competitive, but it's just, man, just to take the time to learn and try and experiment. And that's what's been really interesting with the recent work is like, I could do this with using presets, but maybe it's fun to learn it.
Yep.
And learn, but like I'm interested in like making stuff look like old Nintendo 64 graphics and the PlayStation 1 graphics, how it's all jagged. Like, how do they do? It's like, how do they do that? How do you apply that now with modern like technology and like how do you make that into like an analog, like cut up looking thing? There's sort of some avenues I want to explore this year.
Yep.
And then how do you mash that back into photography? How do you put a photo layer in there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes much sense, but like...
No, well, it does, and it makes sense to you because you're the one making it.
Yeah, I'm sure this might sound like just to some people, like, but what, Nintendo 64 photo, what? But like it's looking at a lot of the things that I was just into, like video games and stuff. And how do you make that?
But that's the thing, I think, this sort of, everything looks polished and perfect with AI, so you're trying to bring the tangible, physicalness back to it. Even if it's not, if it is digital, it still looks like it's a bit not perfect.
Yeah, it's even like I mean, I look at like artists that like, like I look at like the Beastie Boys released the book a couple of years ago. It was just fantastic.
I've got that up there.
Yeah, the Beastie Boys book. It's like great. I recommend that to any creative to read through, to look at like, if that's the way you want to go, like you're looking at a group of artists that their identity is so intertwined to New York City, but that very like analog mixtape, cut and paste, mash up of music genres and visual styles, and that's something that resonated when I read that book. And they said to Ad Rock and Mike D, said, how do you describe what your vibe and all that? And I said, man, everything we're into, the music, it's just a mixtape of all that visual noise and everything we're into. And that's the approach I try to take with the work I'm doing now. Is it's a mixtape mashup of everything I'm into, and you feed it in, it goes in a pipe in the top of your head, and then it vomits out your hands at the computer or the camera and cutting it up, so that's where I'm at with that.
Is it a hard balancing point to make the messy chaos still aesthetically pleasing? That's hard.
Oh yeah, man. Like, I mean, I'm working on a piece at the moment which I wish I could talk about, but I'm NDA'd on it. Like a trailer I'm working on. Like, I just had to sign a thing that says you cannot talk about this. But you put it all together and you sort of play it back, and you're like, the eye doesn't know where to go. That's a photo. I mean, same with like graphic design. It's a photographic design kind of thing where you've got to lead the eye to where you need it to be.
When something's so busy with all the elements,
that's
really hard.
It's very hard, and you got to like kind of rein it back into the, especially when clients trying to advertise something, you got to push it back here to the center or whatever. But yeah, like having all those elements everywhere, you got to try and push everything back into the middle.
Where do you see design trends going in 2025? Because we kind of had that era last year of kind of, I don't even know what you'd call it, but everything became colours that were clashing sort of thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know what you
kind of had
mean.
that sort of thing. Yeah. And the harmony kind of went out of it.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you mentioned that, is that going back to photography, and I promise I won't segue too hard, but photography goes in fits and starts just like that, like stylistically, where when I moved to New York City, it was all about, I guess, that very US Vogue look of, it's very tailored and beautiful and structured. And then as, I guess the only aesthetic I could say is like Vice magazine at the time, flash on camera, raw, shot on Instamatic film. It was that, I mean, that might not be the best example, but...
No, but I know what you mean.
Very
like the American
raw.
Apparel was a bit like
American
that as well.
Apparel was probably the label that really used it. But it was also that, like, to move away, just to put it in a bit of a more realistic sense, I guess, is like, it was about realism. Not that not that aesthetic was extremely real, but I mean, like, that very, when you're using those methods of flash on camera, Instamatic camera, it was all very real and very raw, and that was really popular for a while. And then stuff started to come back in where it was quite fantastical, and particularly where people were embracing photographers and artists, like particularly like people of color and people who had a very different viewpoint to an industry that was had been a certain way for a very long time, quite like, like white male photographers and things like that, you know. But so a lot of it went back to color, and there's a lot of joy and things like that, you know.
It just goes through cycles.
It goes through cycles. So even just go back to design and things like that. You sort of see that, even that PlayStation 1 aesthetic coming in, that people are getting interested in.
Yeah,
and
it's that turn of the century kind of stuff.
99, 2000. I was listening to some music on the way here that sounded like it was drum and bass cut from a Nintendo 64 game. You know what I mean? So I think of that 2000s. What do I know?
But that's about the 20, 25 year cycle. It does tend to happen.
Which is, holy shit, that's 20, 25 years. But who knows? We might be all in 2025, people might be walking around in skinny jeans again, listening to the Strokes, you know, and doing that whole New York dive bar rock aesthetic. I mean, everyone's out there wearing baggies again.
It is, yeah. That's a mate of mine, Frosty. He put this funny quote on Facebook or Instagram or wherever he put it, and he goes, "Man, Kmart's selling baggy jeans. We'll be back to skinny jeans by summer." You know what I mean? Once they start selling them in those stock shops.
You never know, mate. You never know. It might be back in skinny. Again, what do I mean? I got to stress to your listeners, I don't know shit about. I'm probably running my mouth about stuff. I totally don't know what I'm talking about.
But that's the thing about New York, right?
Yeah.
Is that people aren't necessarily following the trends as much because everyone's kind of doing their own thing a little bit. Obviously the mainstream are following the trends that the shops are, and you go through those cycles. Yeah. But people are also doing their own thing. They find their own style. Yeah,
that's the great thing about that place, really, and that's what keeps creatives coming there, is you do you know what I mean? But I think the saying for 2025, who knows, man? Stuff changes and flows so quickly. Yeah. You know, someone finds there's a new, someone's cutting an interesting sound, and let's all go over there and follow that. That's amazing, you know. So we'll see. But that everyone resurrecting stuff from the 2000s, you know.
The Millennium style.
Yeah. It's cool. I love seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
Come back. Good memories and nostalgia.
When we all thought the world was going to end.
I know. I found it's hilarious. It's not hilarious, but I found one of the old mags I used to work for, and they were talking about, it was from 2000 when they were doing all the big 2000 New Year's Eve rave parties, and everyone was like, "Do you really think the Millennium Bug's going to shut stuff down?" And so
it was one of the biggest fizzes of all time.
I know. I was on I was working that night at the big hardware. Hardware did a party down at the docks that night. I think it was Welcome 2000. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but I was on stage at midnight shooting the crowd and wondering, okay, is everything going to shut down in about?
And it didn't happen.
Nothing happened. What a fizzer. The music kept going, and
it was a big disappointment.
It was a big disappointment. Good party though. It was a good time, you know.
Not that we wanted the world to end, but it was just so spooked that something was going to go wrong, and nothing changed.
Nothing changed. Nothing.
What advice would you give to other young creators, not necessarily photographers or people in motion graphics, but just people that might want to go to the US or might want to push their craft out of Australia? What would you tell them to do? Studying's the way to go, or that path worked for me. And it inevitably afforded you the ability to stay there, which probably wouldn't have happened if you didn't.
Had I not had the degree from RMIT, which I would not have got without the 2 years of photographic imaging college, right? Everything begets the next thing. But had I not had that tertiary education, it would have got in the way. I might have found a way to stay there, but it helped. But I think any creative, whether it's, you've had some of the most incredible MCs and rappers, and you've had writers in here and everything, but and all the creatives have been through here. I think anyone would say be prepared for. Sorry, I'll come back to the overseas bit, but be prepared for the long haul.
It's not going to happen overnight.
It is not going to happen overnight. Some people may be lucky.
But then the sustainability.
Sustainability. You've got to. You look at a lot of these guys, man. They've been doing it. They've been doing it a long time, and they keep putting stuff out. Incredible. They keep evolving. So long haul. Keep evolving. Keep coming back to the stuff that really made you tick, initially, which set that spark, But in terms of like to go overseas, I think it could be anywhere. It could be you want to go to Japan, United States, UK, Europe, whatever. But it's got to pack the bag, take a chance, and give it a shot, because everything like lives in language. You got to go out there and talk it. Oh, that's what I did in New York. Got there. Oh yeah, I'm from Australia, but I really want to. Yeah, I really want to work here. I want to shoot here. It's gonna happen. Da da da. And they'll be, oh, by the way, I got a guy. You're crashing his couch. Or I got a mate of mine's actually. He owns a studio, or she owns a studio. You should go have a chat. So I think it's just, look, education. Yeah, if you can do it, yeah, great. If it works for you, do it. But also there's the practical aspect. If you're a photographer, you want to get a leg up, assisting's the way to go. Go work at a studio, find the photographers you like and respect, drop emails, drop calls. Well, no one calls anymore, but drop emails. And 99% of the emails aren't going to come back. And I do that now, trying to contact clients. 99% of those emails do not come back, but you get the one.
Yep.
Yeah, one email that.
So you're still reaching out to people.
Yeah, I have to. In a
commercial aspect, like these are brands you want to work with.
I keep trying with exploring new agents or producers, or I am blessed that things are busy enough where I don't have to do it a lot.
Yep.
And that's not me saying I am like my work is so great that I don't need to. That's not it at all. I've just been lucky that stuff has flowed on from the next. But when I want to work with new people, brands, producers, creative directors, art directors, I fire off a ton of emails and most of them don't come back. People are busy, great, but not right now. And I say that to young creatives is, you're going to feel discouraged, but you just got to keep pushing, because you've got something to say. You've got, whether it's aesthetically or whatever, musically, just got to keep pushing.
It's obviously now this being a creative is a actual career path. A lot of people grew up and that wasn't an option for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So it must be cool, like you said, you spoke to some kids at some schools and that sort of thing, to know that people can follow these creative parts now, where a lot of people were told back in the day, no, you got to go get a trade or you got to do this,
Well, I think photography when I was coming up, and I'll go back to just what I know with photography, I think it was quite a narrow, rigid might not be the right word, and narrow might not be the right word, but it was quite streamlined. You're going to be this photographer. Something was always drilled to me. What photographer are you? What kind of what's your thing? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Music, portraits, fashion, da-da-da. Maybe it's to a detriment. Maybe I could have been doing something more amazing if I'd streamlined it, but I was too this is interesting and this is interesting. But I totally segued there and I lost what I was saying. I do it all the time.
It's cool that now it is a proper career path.
Yes. You can be a creative because there are now more avenues for you to drop your work, promote it, and pursue a career in it. You can become, I don't like saying this almost, but you can become a brand.
Yep. And that's important too.
That is kind of important because everyone can be on social and project that they are the brand. Like you can have merch, and I know photographers have merch now. They have a hat with a logo and stuff like that. Or you might also have a podcast, or you might have you might be a DJ as well on the side, and you've got your SoundCloud and things like that. So you can be a creative, and there are a lot more avenues open to you to push that.
Yeah. But having said that, though, there's never been a more saturated market for people to be creatives.
It's super saturated. Yeah. So I would say that. I think I might be even contradicting myself, but I would say you're asking about young photographers. I think it's about you get out there, you shoot, and again, photography aspect. You get out there, you shoot until you find what you like and what works and makes you tick. And then you develop that and you pursue that and present that, to the professional world. You be that that girl or that guy. But you can develop your brand around that. But like I said, young people, it's the long haul, man. It is the long haul.
And then I guess it's like having what you're passionate about, making sure that that's why you keep doing it because you're passionate about that thing.
Yeah.
And then building another skill set around that that'll make you valuable.
Yeah, I think like I've heard from a lot of people for 2025, like a lot of friends, speaking to a lot of friends, a lot of people are almost preparing a pivot in their work. Maybe they've hit a 10-year mark, a 20-year mark, maybe a 5-year mark. But I think it's also not being afraid to pivot is important. Like finding new directions and new crafts within your work. Because otherwise, I mean, not everyone can do it. Not everyone can pivot and for it to be successful. But, you don't want to... I have heard a lot of shooters that go, oh, man, I'm still shooting catalogs. I hate it. It's so fucking boring. It's like, well...
The other thing is you always got to remember, and this is just like a bit of a gratitude thing, that your shitty job is someone else's dream job sort of thing.
That's a really...
You know what I mean?
Great. Yeah. That's a really great way to sum it up. And sometimes when I am having that I'm sitting there on the computer in the studio. I've got a studio over in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, and I believe Jay-Z grew up across the street. It's opposite the Marcy houses.
Oh yeah.
So I bike past that. I'm like, yeah, you grew up there. You're sitting there on like hour 12 of like whatever job retouching, and you're like, no, man. I'm actually being able to pay my bills on my own steam, doing what I want.
Yeah.
Which is a blessing. I'm grateful for. I mean, like, again, I grew up in Melbourne, and they keep having me back in the States, which is great. You
got permanent residency?
No, not yet. Okay. It's a lot of the kettle of fish. I'm
right.
Sure. Anyway, some of my mates, when they listen to this, they'll be like, told you a million times, man, get that green card. It's just you get your visa renewed, you get back into work, and a green card takes a while to do, and then you're like, oh,
so shit. Will you be there forever, do you think?
Mate, Melbourne will always be home. I come back here every year, and it's just, man, it's such a great city.
Yep.
There's so many great things going on and popping off, whether it's music or food or culture, and it's just so much going on, mate.
But New York is home as well. New York, does it feel like you're home?
Both are home.
Right.
Both are home. New York, I get asked that by my mates, you ever coming back? I'm like, just going to see what happens, man. And after 18 years, it's a lot of seeing what happens. But but both are home. Melbourne will always be home, but both are home, and I'm happy to bounce between the both. But I work in the States and live there, but home every year this time of year. It's such a great time to be here.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people do that. They'll come back here for that Christmas sort of festive period and get your fix.
Get your fix and you're off, man. After a few weeks, all right, I'm ready to go back, But no, it's always nice to come back here. But we'll, I don't know, mate. We'll see. One day it'll be home, I'm sure.
I'm sure it's pretty expensive to try and buy something there, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
out of control, mate.
Yeah, and even though, like, obviously things aren't cheap here, but you might get a backyard.
Out of control. I'd have a backyard like in New York City. I mean, we have a backyard in our building, but it's not ours. You look down, and you're like, it'd be nice if we made friends with those neighbours, eh? You can maybe go sit out there in the summer. But it's an expensive city, mate.
Has the city actually changed a lot? From what I see on social media, there's a lot of people posting, the crime's gone out of control and blah, blah, blah. And that happens in every city. But there's been a big focus that post-COVID, New York's changed a lot. Do you think it has?
Yeah, it's a really, like COVID in New York, that's 5 years ago now. It's crazy. I can't speak for everyone, but like
But you were there through that whole period.
Yeah, I stayed, mate. Like, I mean, I probably couldn't have been able to get out even if I wanted to, but stayed in the city. And my experience, I found like honestly, I couldn't sit still. Like everything shut down. Like couldn't work.
Yeah.
I ended up interesting talking about the remote, the motion stuff, which you can do remotely, all that motion graphics and motion collaging. That's something I was able to actually like leverage being able to do as work when you couldn't go. We moved into our studio, me and the 4 photographers I share with. We moved in 2 weeks before COVID, shut everything down, literally pushed our stuff in. It was a week before, I think.
And then you've got to pay the rent non-stop.
Well, yeah, we were blessed with a landlord that was sympathetic because a lot of creatives we're in an old factory and or an old warehouse, and they just said, look, we get it, pay what you can. And you'll have to make it up later. But I mean, we pushed our stuff in and locked the door, didn't come back for 3 months. But the city, like I couldn't sit still. I biked the city a lot, took photos. It was dead quiet.
Which is cool from a photography perspective.
Well, I met a lot of people during that time. I mean, you had to keep your distance and wear your mask and everything like that. But eventually, like as the summer kicked on, as it began to get warmer, like you sort of got out and like all the BMX crews were just hovering around Times Square. It was empty, so they were just using Times Square as something to BMX on, like jumping and doing tricks and everything. I just sort of met them, like, hey, I'll take your picture, And I walked around and met people. Again, like not like breathing on them, but eventually I just like, but the city, like anywhere, it got a little dire. And there's a lot of like wondering, like, how is stuff going to get back on its feet, whether it was the restaurant industry.
Have you seen that hospitality scene change a lot?
I would say, me personally, my observation, someone will tell me I'm full of shit, but my observation is New York has got back it's back to the way it was in terms of the amount of people around. And I mean, that was even the last couple of years, but a lot of places did close. A lot of places couldn't survive. A lot of vacancies and things like that. But there's also been a lot of comeback.
Yep.
A lot of people found, like Washington Square Park used to pop off, like during the shutdowns, 2020, man. DJs, bands, they'd be throwing parties in the middle of the park, in the middle of the fountain, because that's all you could do. Nothing was open.
Yep.
I mean, much to the annoyance of the residents around Washington Square Park.
Yep.
But, particularly when all the protests were going on as well during 2020, that's where everyone congregated. And and it changed, but it did change that park changed. Now there are like weekly, like, young designers, young, like people selling like, CBD and stuff like that. And, people selling like secondhand clothes, but it's always now a place that people congregate, musicians and things like that, more so than before that. But I think, you're saying people posting about crime and stuff like that. I think a lot of that is a bit overblown.
Yep.
Again, I can't speak to people who have been affected by that.
Yep.
Yes, there is stuff that is quite like someone set someone on fire recently.
I heard about that.
And that's the stuff where you go, oh shit, I haven't heard of that.
She was asleep in the subway or something.
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone being set on fire. I mean, Jesus Christ, But statistically, crime's down.
Right.
And it's down pre-COVID levels.
Yeah.
But there is evidence, like a lot of people hopping turnstiles in the subway.
But that's just petty crime.
Yeah, I mean, I've just noticed that I'll be at my subway stop and it's just like more like you just say,
people don't have the what's it cost to catch a subway these days?
$2.75.
Okay.
But just little things like that. I mean, like it doesn't bother me, But yeah, I'd say New York. It's back on its feet. Yeah. It's definitely back on its feet, but it got gnarly there for a bit. Like it definitely got gnarly, and it was the impatience of people just impatient to like get back to work, or and people lost jobs and things like that, and people were doing it tough. So it turns into there's a bit of crime around.
How do you think New York's going to handle the new president, man? That's going to be interesting, isn't it? Can you vote? Are you allowed?
I can't vote. No, I can't.
But
vote.
if you got PR, you could. If you got the green card,
you had to be. You have to be a citizen. You have to be a citizen. But that party, his party picked up votes right across the board, and that spoke to people who were quite just dissatisfied over the last 4 years. Now, I'm sure people listening would be like, there might be some people who think he's all right. Oh, Trump's all right. He's going to do all right. He might do some good things. He just, there's a lot of, within that party, a lot of cruelty towards people. women's health and like immigrants and things like that. And so
it's interesting how some of the people with big business have backflipped since he's won. You know
absolutely,
what I mean? And like people go, well, what do you expect him to do? But I'm like, it's a bit sad, you know.
But that will always happen.
Yeah,
it'll always happen. You'll
people deleting tweets and all sorts of stuff that was like anti him, and now they're like trying to remove that from history.
Yeah. I mean, look, businesses will always sort of ebb and flow with who's in power, and tech industries, that was a lot of fire lobbed at them by, the conservative side of things. So it's interesting seeing, like your Facebooks and all that suddenly like changing their tack. But because there's a lot of money involved for them, they'll ebb and flow with who is in power. You might find if the Dems run someone in 2028 that wins, and then suddenly it'll flow the other way. Again. But again, I mean, look, that's just my opinion.
No, but you've been living there for a long time now, so you see it more than any of us do that have just been on holidays, you know what I mean?
Oh, mate, it was gnarly there, the 4 years he was in charge. But, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, I mean,
I know that in a lot of other cities, in the capital generally, or in the city, they're Democratic, and then as you get further out to the sticks, it becomes more Republican. Yeah. Is that the same in New York as well, or is that just a different? It is the same. So in New York State, you'll find people that are more Trumpsters. Yeah,
because I think also God understands a lot of people's politics. There was a lot of people said was it sounds like. Many people are saying no. That's what a lot of voters said. It's I don't necessarily like the guy, but the economy, this, that, the jobs have left our region of the country and things like that. But as you go further out in New York State, Long Island, up into the Catskills and things like that, your political demographics change.
I thought maybe New York was different because that was so, No,
I mean, that's always the way. Yeah, but I mean, there was picked up a lot of votes this time around. That the party, it swung quite a bit. And as the further you go out, it always happens in the States. Like the rural states will tend to, the rural areas will tend to be more. It's like anywhere. It's even like in Australia. Like your cities and urban areas will tend to swing one way, and then. I mean, I think, again, I haven't lived it.
It's a generalisation, but I think it is a generalisation that's generally correct.
Yeah. I mean, again, I can't speak to that much because I haven't lived here for a while. But you do find in New York, the further you go out. Yeah.
Let's get off politics, man. We'll get back onto your story.
Because I will say something and someone will go, I hate that guy,
No, but anyway, look, I don't like talking about politics because I don't know a lot about it. But at the same time, we're forced to live in this, like this. We need to know something about it.
Yeah.
And it's going to impact everybody in one way or another.
Yeah. But again, we'll see how it goes. Because I can't vote over there, so what can I say?
What can you do? That's it, man. When you talked about you've reached out to brands and that sort of stuff, if there's like a wish list, who do you really want to work with? Like, who is someone that or a brand or an individual or a creative that you'd really love to work with that you think that what you do could really complement their art or their direction?
I would actually like to start to work more with the movie industry.
Trailers or like just...
maybe social trailers and things like that. Because just not necessarily the trailers you would see in the cinema, but motion posters that you might see.
Yep.
Whether it's a public transport or in the subway or on electronic billboards. So because making motion collage versions of those posters and things like that, and it'd be making that whole pipeline of shooting it through to designing it and animating it. But like working within the motion picture industry, do
you think that's in a good spot now? Because it seems like it's in a like a lot of things could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, COVID hit the film industry hard. The strikes hit. I mean, they needed to happen. They hit the industry pretty hard. It's the film industry there is I feel like cinema and all that, it shoots itself in the foot a bit. You put out a movie, and then 3 weeks later you can rent it online. Doesn't give you an incentive to go and see the
But then
movies.
you've got Netflix taken over as well.
Yeah.
Right, so Netflix, now there's some anticipated movies
Yeah.
that just come out on Netflix,
Yeah.
which means, like, to me, it kind of doesn't come out with the fanfare.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, that's actually a really good point. There's a lot of less. There are less like event movies and things like that. But I'd love to like try. I mean, there's so much good art that comes out around film as well. So I'd like to kind of work within that, and then even just away from like commercial stuff, I'd like to work in doing graphics and motion pieces for live music. Maybe in theatre and things like that, like projections. And I did work with a performer last year. I was at a place called The Shed, which is in New York City. It's in the Hudson Yards, a huge, like, it's basically a venue that it's like 5 stories high and part of it's on wheels, and they can make it an open air amphitheatre, can actually roll out. It's insane. It's like, imagine Fed Square on wheels.
Yeah, wow.
So worked with a musician / dancer on a 4-night show where I made giant projected motion collages to go with each song and section of the show, and I was like, this could be cool fun to do, you know, because it's nice to get stuff off a screen that big, you know, and actually out in the real world. Yeah,
it opens up a lot of different possibilities.
Yeah.
Well, have you looked into like the sort of augmented reality stuff?
Did a little bit of that. That was a 2020 experiment.
Yeah.
When we were all sort of sitting at home wanting to be other places, so I tried that. Did all right. Yeah, it was a fun thing to dabble in. I don't know how much that tech is really sort of taken off. It's sort of I feel like it kind of was starting to take off, and then AI kind of popped along and stole a bit of the thunder, and everyone's really excited by that.
I think that was kind of like when Google was betting on the Google Glass, and then when that didn't happen, I think maybe they thought this.
But even like this, you know, like having.
But hasn't it come out that what the biggest game was the Pokemon one, and then they realised that they were using that to just mine everyone's data, so they can just have maps of everywhere.
Right. I mean, but I don't know, man. Like, you could do it with your phone. You know, you do this, and you can see stuff in 3D. Like, you can scan something on a wall and it pops out.
And that's the thing. But like, say like QR codes, everyone knows them now.
Yeah.
That came out that technology was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it didn't do anything until, well, maybe the 90s, but it's been around for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until you have something happens like fucking COVID where everybody, or smartphones come along where they're like, oh, we can actually use this QR technology.
Yeah.
And I feel like augmented reality might be a bit more like that.
It is, because you can have stuff where you can like snap the side of a wall and the whole thing comes to life. But I just feel like it. I mean, I could be wrong. I just feel like it's something that started to pop off and then it doesn't happen that much anymore. It's probably got more practical. Might have more practical applications for things like, you know, when you buy furniture and you see stuff in your space. But I don't personally see a lot of artists doing it to extend art pieces. Just
because I felt like that was what an application it really could have been used for.
Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of fun doing it, but just didn't quite pursue it. Because I didn't do it doesn't mean it's not popping off now. But I don't sort of see it as much as I thought it would be out there in the world.
Same.
Yeah.
I guess things just go through different popularity and things push in different directions, and all it would take is a certain brand or something to start pushing that thing again, or use that tech in its phone or something.
Oh,
and all of a sudden,
mate.
You know,
stick it in an Oculus headset and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't do that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's VR, isn't it? Got that totally wrong.
But it's similar sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It costs like $5,000 for one of those things.
Yeah, I had to play with one of those the other week, and motion sickness, you know, it's like, it's just too freaky, man. You're moving forward and you're not actually moving, and it's like
a bit too much going on.
Too much, mate. Too much.
As we get close to wrapping things up, man, is there anything else that we haven't touched on? Is there anyone you want to shout out? Is there anything you want to tell us coming up in 2025?
I don't.
Man, we've almost talked for 2 hours.
Oh my God.
It goes quick, hey?
It goes quick, and I'm sure I've rabbited it on about who knows what. But no, I just mean, look, shout out, like, you know, I was just talking about like my mate Donnie and Elacor, who dropped his album this year. I'm really proud of. It's last year now, 2024, but just like seeing like mates like that, you know, who are just, let's say about longevity. You want to talk about longevity, someone like Ellicor, you know.
He's got a song called Longevity on that album.
Yeah, you know, the lyrics like back when he was just jumping off, you know, are about like, you know, the road ahead, you know, and how, you know, get out there, dream big, and then he did it, man. Now he's got that, so the stronger the wind, stronger the tree.
That's it.
You know, and there's so much like retrospective like lyrics in there. So, you know, about that journey and like, you know, so I just, real like, you know, shout out to Ellicor. Like, I mean, just real proud of him. He's one of my oldest friends, and just to be still doing it. Longevity, you know, he's someone who accepted that career is going to be the long haul, and, you know, because that's what being a lifer is, man, in the creative world. So and just like, it's just nice being back here and seeing all my, you know, all the friends, and, you know, so they know who they are, you know, like all my old mates here, and shout out and like to two teachers, Heather Denis and Mick Siriani, man, like they taught me back in the day, and I still go and see them when I'm back in town. And teachers, you know, I say teachers matter, you know, and they were great teachers. And
so you still see them 25 years, like how long would it be?
Like about 20 years, something like that. Yeah, they just took the time for me, you know, and really encouraged me and said I could. New York City, man, go for it, you know. So, yeah.
Will we see you back here at probably next December?
You will see me in December, unless I decide Melbourne's where I'm going to move back to. But no, it's always. I sometimes pop back middle of the year, you know. See, you know, as the olds get older, you know, you sort of want to drop back a bit more. But if it's not middle of the year, it's definitely going to be in December, yeah.
And anything else you want to tell us about creatively? You said you can't talk about a project which you're excited about. Is there anything you can talk about?
Well, I mean, like, that's the thing. There's a couple of jobs coming up. They're all NDA'd. I can't talk about. No, there'll be some. I think the work this year would be like predominantly moving in the direction of like motion collaging, but I would definitely like to be trying to get out into the live music field and, you know, like doing graphics behind the bands, you know, maybe even that Sphere thing, you know, in Las Vegas.
Well, they've already doing another one of those in the UAE somewhere, so I think that's probably going to be a trend that's going to continue.
Yeah, like just like working out how to get that stuff out in the real world. I mean, it's insane what they're doing there, the concerts and, you know. Yeah,
because like how would you even make that on a flat screen? Do you make it on a dome?
I'm like, I saw some of the stuff that got projected there, and I'm like, you must like do it flat, and then you must have to custom make a projection thing, and then look at it. And
is it LED dots? Is it LED?
It's something like a 16K resolution screen, like on the inside, and it's indistinguishable from reality. Like you just can't tell the difference.
Imagine seeing that 30 years ago, and you'd be like, that's not real.
Nah, I mean, I was thinking about like back in the day, going to all like the Melbourne raves, and like, you know, I've sort of moved around different cultures of music, you know, being adjacent to a lot of that, but you know, just thinking about what they used to have in all those warehouse parties down at the docks, and they were just like often like a big fabric sheet, you know, with a projection in front of it, and it was just
glow in the dark paint.
Yeah, you know, and like making like really kind of just simple graphics on the repeat, and now it's like stuff like, I mean, imagine.
You can't even get your head around it.
No, it's insane, you know. You see those, like, you go down to St Kilda and there's like one of those screens that's wrapped around a building, and it's so HD that you don't see any pixels, you know. Crazy.
We live at, and that just used to be a red Coca-Cola sign
for
a long time.
That was a red Coca-Cola sign. Yeah, mate.
Times have changed.
Times have changed, mate. But I like the St Kilda still. Feels like St Kilda. Yeah.
It still does. It hasn't changed too much.
Well, the Astor's still there, which is important. I used to work for the Astor, so it's still there, and that's important.
But I think St Michael's own it now, so it's in good hands.
The Palace owns it. Palace Cinemas. So right when I'd moved away right before moving away to the States, I was still. That's another. I didn't mention that I had to work side jobs to make, as well as doing photo gigs. But the Astor I worked in a video store with Jonas Ethics, one of the greatest graffiti artists, writers of all time. worked in that video store, but I worked at the Astor tearing tickets, but I loved that place, loved it, but St. Michael's were going to buy it. And
they didn't buy it?
Did not,
because they bought the church across the road and they bought a bunch of stuff around it.
Yeah, but there was a lot of outrage that St. Michael's were going to buy it because they wanted to turn it into their own kind of school function thing, and a lot of outrage. And then I think eventually the Palace Cinemas eventually bought it and continued the tradition of they do new stuff there, but guy Zach Hepburn, I think his name is, he's kind of committed to keep it going the way it was. They've had to do some stuff to make it commercially viable, but it's still there, mate.
A couple of years ago I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood there.
Oh yeah,
they did a few of those sort of things there. I actually got the program, I'll show you.
Right.
Man, I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me, mate.
And when you come back in December of this year, you can come back. We can talk about this stuff you weren't allowed to talk about. We can talk about what's happened and your journey in the last 12 months.
Hopefully the NDA stuff is not too anticlimactic. But it's going to be a good year. I mean, we'll see. It's always nice to come back. But thank you for having me and letting me waffle on about whatevs.
Thanks for taking the time, man.
Cheers,
I appreciate
mate.
it. I think it was a good chat.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing what you've got for us in 2025.
2024, 25. Yeah, 25. Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.